Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for being part of this webinar. It is called Out of Balance, the truth about masculine and feminine energy, what they're really doing to your life, your body, and your relationships. So, really important topic, something that I didn't know about until fairly recently, I would say, in the course of my life. Just like a couple of other things that were really important that I didn't get told when I was younger, things like nervous system regulation and whatnot. This is right up there as well with one of those super important topics that I wish that I had have known earlier and that I'm very passionate about helping other people understand as well. Because this is one of the ones where you might have heard of it, but you don't really know exactly what it is, or, maybe there is a bit of a half truth in what you do know. So I do want to say up front, some of what I'm going to cover tonight might feel a little confronting, not in a bad way, just in a way that things feel a little uncomfortable when they're true, right? So stay open, stay curious, allow me to challenge you a little bit on what you do know, and if something lands, then let it land. Alrighty, let's go. So, first of all, just a little bit about myself, who I am. My name is Sarah-Jayne McNaughton. I'm based on the beautiful Sunshine Coast. And what I do is I am an entrepreneur. I am a coach who works specifically with solo business operators in the business coaching and accountability space. And I also do personal transformation coaching, mindset coaching, life strategy as well. And the two really do go hand in hand when it comes to solo business ownership. The founder ceiling is the business ceiling. So I tend to work on both of those pieces at the same time. I've trained alongside some of the most world-class mentors in the personal development space. And also I'm a personal development program facilitator as well, both with the Ascendancy Collective and externally as well. I'm a keynote speaker and expert on nervous system regulation and stress management. They're my favorite and most prominent topics that I speak on. And then aside from that, in my, the whole entrepreneur thing's only about 5 years old. Before that, I spent a majority of my working life in the corporate space, over 20 years working for corporates, and the last 10 were in leadership or management roles. So I've got an MBA and lots of experience in how teams work, in how leadership works, and how, corporate well-being and whatnot works. So I did a bit of coaching in that space as well when I left the corporate world to pursue my own avenue and my own dreams. But why am I talking to you about this tonight? Well, aside from all those things I am now and all those things I was in the past, I lived this like completely and totally. I spent the better part of my adult life in what I now understand to be full masculine overdrive. I was driven, ambitious, relentless. I was achieving everything. I was an action-taking machine, climbing the corporate ladder, earning great money, building a life that looked pretty extraordinary from the outside. And I was completely and utterly disconnected from myself. Of course, didn't know that at the time, the beauty of hindsight, right? I hadn't cried in years. I wouldn't let myself get too excited either, in case people thought I was being dramatic. I had no idea what I actually felt about anything, I would say, looking back, because I never stopped long enough to feel. My body was essentially a vehicle I dragged around to get things done. Rest was like a failure, if you like. And softness was a real weakness as well. And there was nothing worse than appearing weak. So asking for help as well felt like I was losing in life. So I thought that's just who I was. All right. I was built for performance, achievement. That I was one of those people who didn't really need much, but also it was never enough. I was never enough. I was never doing enough. Nothing was ever enough. It was a constant grind. At the same time, I was drinking to have fun, eating badly, smoking, taking medication for depression that would often result in days in bed. And it was like a seesaw. I was divorced by 30. And then, as I've shared before, some of you may have heard this, I had the moment. And for me, I've had lots of massive, huge, life-altering events. The way that I viewed the world changed. traumatic, if you like that sort of language, have happened to me. Of course, they have, like anyone. But this was one of those moments that was so small on the scale of things that have happened to people in their lives and so incredibly impact. It completely imploded my world and changed everything. And it was a very ordinary Tuesday evening, and someone just asked me at the table, what is it that you love to do? What lights you up? What really lights you up? And I had absolutely nothing to say. I couldn't even make up an answer. The question completely cracked something open in me. And what I eventually came to understand through years following that of deep personal work, nervous system regulation, somatic healing, trauma work, all of these things I'd never heard of before, is that I had been living from one tiny sliver of who I actually was. And I just never gave myself the time to understand who I was and what I wanted. I had complete access to my masculine energy, the drive, the discipline, the logic, the doing, but my feminine, my capacity to feel, to receive, to rest, to flow, to be intuitive, to be soft and open and present, it had all gone completely silent. And to be honest, I don't remember a time when that was present, even as a child. So, when I reflect on this now, I go, wow, did I ever really allow myself to have that? And the silence, in hindsight again, was really costing me everything. My health, my relationships, my joy, my sense of self. And tonight, I want to give you what took me years to understand, because once you see this, you can't unsee it. And I really want you to think about how this works for you in your own life without criticism and judgment, because quite frankly, we do enough of that on ourselves, just with pure love and grace and awareness so that we can change it. If anything needs to be changed for some of you, there won't need to be any change, right? So, let's talk about what masculine and feminine energy actually are. Okay, so first point that might be contrary to what you've heard before, it might not, is that when most people hear masculine and feminine energy, they immediately think about men and women, about gender, about roles. That is not what we are talking about tonight. Masculine and feminine energy are not about your gender, they're not about your sexuality, they're not about whether you're a man or a woman or anything in between. Every single human being on this planet has both masculine and feminine within them, always, without exception. Think of it like this. You have a left brain and a right brain. You need both to function fully. Now, you might have a tendency or dominance towards one over the other, but both are present and both are active. You have a nervous system with two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic. You need both in balance. Masculine and feminine energy are the same, two complementary forces that exist within all of us that are both equally necessary for a whole, healthy, vibrant life. The question is never which one, you have or which one you are. The question is which one do you have most access to and which one might have gone a little bit quiet. Okay, so what are they? Let me describe them both. And as I do, I want you to notice if one kind of feels like home, feels familiar, and then if one feels a little bit foreign to you. Okay, so we'll start with masculine energy. Now, at its core, masculine energy is direction and purpose. So knowing where you're going and driving toward it. Structure, logic, clarity. So the ability to think, plan, decide. Action and doing. So getting things done, making things happen. Sometimes at all costs, but we'll go into that in a moment. Discipline and focus. So staying the course, being consistent. Protection, holding space, providing safety, being a container for others, and presence, being grounded, stable, certain. So masculine energy is the sun, constant, directional, reliable, warm but not yielding. So think about it like that. Now, feminine energy at its core, feeling and emotion. So, when I say feeling and emotion, I mean the full range, the depth, the richness. Intuition. So that knowing that has no logical explanation, but it's usually right. Receiving, so the capacity to let things in, to be given to be held. Flow, so the ability to move with life rather than against it. Creativity and expression, so art, beauty, pleasure, play, things of that nature. Connection, so connection to self, to others, to something bigger. And rest and restoration, so the wisdom to stop, to replenish, to be. It's very much a be, masculine's very much a do. So the feminine energy is like the moon, it's cyclical, magnetic, ever changing, pulling rather than pushing. Neither is better, neither is more evolved, neither is more spiritual or practical. They're both essential and they're both extraordinary. And when we know this and when we harness both, we become extremely powerful, and we become extremely powerful in ourselves and to the world, of course. So most of us in this modern world, with everything it demands of us, have become radically over-indexed in one or the other and have almost lost complete access to the other. So as I said, there might be a dominance, but this is like sometimes we go into a place where actually we've lost access completely to one. So can you feel which one you live in? Which feels most familiar and which feels most unfamiliar? And there might be bits of both. You might be realizing that you're quite balanced, but yeah, have a think about it. Where feels like home for you? Are you mostly in your masculine energy or are you mostly in your feminine energy? All right, now let's have a look at what this looks like in real life, right? When we talk about day-to-day behaviors, programs, things like that. So it's where it gets really interesting and really personal. But it's one thing to describe what these energies are at their best, of course. It's another thing entirely to talk about what happens when they go wrong. So here's the thing, we don't just lose access to energy. We also carry wounded versions of it. And those wounded versions, they sometimes run the show without us even realizing it. So let's take a look at healthy masculine versus wounded masculine first. So healthy masculine is direction, structure, protection, presence, those beautiful things I mentioned before. But wounded masculine, that's what happens when the masculine is overactivated and unbalanced. And this is where I was absolutely sitting. So it looks like this: control. So needing to manage everything and everyone because uncertainty feels extra terrifying. Rigidity. So it's my way or the highway. Inability to bend or adapt or receive a different perspective sometimes. Aggression, whether explosive or the quiet, sort of simmering kind. Always like a low level fight ready to happen somewhere. Hyper independence. I don't need anyone. Asking for help feels humiliating. Emotional shutdown. So feelings of weakness. Vulnerability is dangerous. Everything's fine. Everything's absolutely fine. Constant doing. So never stopping. Rest feels like a failure in this case. Worth is entirely tied to output and achievement. And then dominance. So, and when I say dominance, I mean power over rather than power with, especially when it comes to other people. So not true leadership, power dynamic type leadership. And I want to say this again, this is not a gender thing. I see this in women constantly. I lived this as a woman, as I said before. The world has rewarded this set of behaviors enormously in workplaces, absolutely, in culture, in how we measure success. And so many of us have adapted to just survive, basically. So, how many of those landed for you? Be honest with yourself. Let's take a look at the wounded feminine. So as I said, just as a brief summary, with the healthy feminine is things like flow, feeling, intuition, receiving, rest, creativity, those beautiful things, right? Wounded feminine looks like this: manipulation. So using emotion or indirect means to get needs met. And this is because direct communication doesn't feel safe. Okay. Victimhood. So life is happening to me. I have no agency. Everything is someone else's fault. Over emotionality. So swept away by every feeling. No container, no ground. Um, Neediness and codependency. I cannot function without being validated or held by someone else. Um, Passivity. So waiting for someone to rescue me, right? No ability to take action or make decisions. It's almost like an aversion to decision making. So again, oh, sorry, there's a few more. People pleasing. People pleasing, essentially self-abandonment. My value is entirely determined by whether you approve of me, and I will adjust my behavior to get that. And martyrdom. I sacrifice everything for everyone else. And then I feel deeply resentful about it, which is probably the main key, which is what makes it a little bit, it can make it a little bit dangerous here in terms of our behavior. And again, not a gender thing. I see this in men too, men who have been so shamed out of their emotions that the only way feeling gets expressed is through, manipulation, passive aggressive, silent treatment, things of that nature as well. Um, So, I guess here's the thing I really want you to hear about both of these wounded states. They are not character flaws, they are adaptations. They are what happens to healthy energy under enough stress, trauma, and also conditioning, just programming, what you've seen modeled, essentially, is what we would call conditioning. So, the wounded masculine developed because at some point being in control felt like the only way to be safe. And again, this all ties back to, I'm going to touch on it in a moment, your nervous system, your antiquated, primal system in your body that really understands how, like, sorry, not understands, controls how you're going to react and act before you're consciously aware of it, is constantly concerned about safety. That is its number one priority, not your happiness, not your contentment, none of that. Safety. So most of the time we move from healthy into wounded because of a trauma or programming or an ongoing stress. It's because we're desiring a need to feel safe. So the thing that is a healthy expression of that energy didn't feel healthy, didn't feel safe for some reason, whether that was something that happened or something that was modeled to you, or you've never seen an example of good. Some of us just haven't seen an example of what it's like to be, deeply in the healthy side of these. Um, so yeah, the wounded masculine can develop because at some point, yeah, being in control just felt like safety. And that's the only way to be safe is really probably the integral point. And the wounded feminine developed because at some point, shrinking and people pleasing was the only way to stay loved. And obviously, safety and love are very much the same thing in our body. So if we're loved by someone, then we're safe with them. That is our actual most vulnerable state. So, if I have to get that love by doing these other things that aren't necessarily, serving me in other ways, then so be it, because at the end of the day, I'm seeking safety. Again, all subconscious, all before we know it. It's just part of how we develop as human beings. So these were survival strategies and incredibly intelligent ones. They just probably aren't serving you anymore. So if you've really picked up a few things here and you're like, that is me, you get to choose whether you keep it or throw it away right now, basically. But you got to decide whether they're serving you or not. Um, and like I said, you might not have even been aware of them. So how do we actually get out of balance? And importantly, why it's not your fault? Now, I want to add here that it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility once it's in your awareness, if it's something that you do want to change. Right, so how do we get out of balance? How did we get here? How does a person end up cut off from half of themselves? Well, a few things. Okay, so first of all, the world we live in is built on masculine values. Think about what the world rewards, especially these days: speed, productivity, output, logic, achievement, competition, growth at all costs, never stop, never show weakness. These are all masculine qualities, and there's nothing wrong with any of them in balance. But what does our world actively discourage? Rest, feeling, intuition, slowness, receiving. Like, who feels bad for receiving most of the time? Who's got to justify what they receive in life? Uncertainty, vulnerability, play, being silly, the cyclical nature of energy. The fact is we're not meant to perform at the same level every day, and the current environment doesn't really allow for the cyclical nature of our emotional states and who we are energetically. Yeah, and those are more feminine qualities that I just listed at the end there, and we've collectively made them a problem, right? So rest is laziness, emotions are weakness, that intuition is really irrational, woo-woo. And slowness is failure, as I mentioned before. So we learn very early which part of ourselves are acceptable, and we bury the rest. Again, safety and survival. That's all that is. Second reason that this comes about is childhood conditioning. And I've touched on this a little bit already, but think about what you were taught, not necessarily in words, but like not what you were educated, but in the messages you absorbed growing up. So, big boys don't cry. Stop being so sensitive or so dramatic or so emotional. You need to toughen up. Stop being so needy. Don't draw attention to yourself. Be quiet. Be easy. Or maybe the messages were actually different. Maybe you watched a parent in such a deep, wounded masculine that you decided early on in life never to be like that. So you actually overcorrected into the wounded feminine or vice versa. So that can also happen as well. We've all got a story, and we've got that story that shapes the parts of ourselves, again, that felt safe and the created a limit to where we felt safe to express and which parts we learned to hide. Number 3, trauma and chronic stress. So this is where, I could talk about this all night, so I'm going to have to be careful here, but this is where something I just wish I had have known so much earlier as somebody who was in a burnout cycle many times over. Trauma and also chronic stress, so nervous system pressure for too long. It's so important. This can absolutely shape our energetic state and the balance. It can disrupt the balance really quickly and easily. So when you are chronically stressed, when your nervous system is stuck in that activated fight or flight state, your system defaults to masculine energy every time. Remember what I said? It's like the problem solver, the planner, the decision maker. So your nervous system defaults to masculine energy when it's under pressure every time. It's your survival energy. Like I said, it's the action, the defense, control, vigilance. When your body thinks it's in danger, even perceived danger, even just the stress of a demanding job or a difficult relationship, it pulls you into doing, controlling, thinking, managing, constantly doing something, constantly on edge. And it pulls you out of feminine, out of feeling, out of rest, out of receiving, out of flow. Because those things feel really dangerous when your nervous system is in survival mode. Softness feels like vulnerability. It's like letting your guard down. Feeling your feelings is like a loss of control, because that's what we've been taught, right? Don't lose control of your senses. So here's what happens to many of us, particularly high achievers, particularly people who have been through difficult things. We spend years, sometimes decades, in a chronically activated nervous system state. And over that time, we become more and more entrenched in our masculine energy because that's what keeps us safe. That's what keeps us functional, to be honest. If I wasn't in my masculine state, I would have just fallen in heat. And I did that several times. And then I'd have to hide it, get back up, and just go like nothing had happened. That's what gets us through. So thank you to the masculine energy. It's just unfortunate that we're using it in such a negative way when it can be such a beautiful thing. And then our feminine, our softness, our feelings, our intuition, rest and joy, and it just gets quieter and quieter until one day we look up and we can barely hear it at all. And that was definitely my experience. I had to do a lot of mindset and somatic body work over years to even feel emotion, to feel emotion. So that is how deeply the grip was that I had created for my safety. Again, this is not a weakness. It's just what survival looks like. And it's incredibly common. But here's a beautiful truth for you. And probably this is what I want you to take from tonight more than anything else. If you haven't lost that part of yourself, it's still there. If you're like, wow, I am so missing that thing, or I've never developed that thing, or I didn't even know that thing existed, whatever the opposite is, whether that be the healthy versions of your behaviors and programs, or just the other side of masculine or feminine, whatever it is, it's there. It's been waiting. You can get it back. You can get in tune with it. You can get it back. It all is not lost. So you haven't lost it. It's still there. It's just dormant. You've just suppressed it. All right. How do we get it back? Let's talk about that. How to come back to balance, particularly in your body. We are energetic beings having a human experience, controlled mostly by the mind. But as energetic beings, we should be mostly controlled by the body. Okay? So this is really the part that you came for, right? The practical bit. What do I actually do with all of this? And I want to say coming back into balance is not about abandoning your masculine. It's not about becoming soft or passive or giving up your ambition or your drive. Your masculine is a gift and you're not getting rid of it. What we're doing is making room for the other half of you to exist, to breathe and come back online. Okay, that's where we're going with some of these really practical things that you can start doing in order to bring back balance. And that is the end game, balance. So when you have both present and healthy, that is when real magic happens. And I mentioned this before, that's when you become like a really powerful version of yourself in complete safety with yourself. So one thing you might have noticed, and I'm going to go off tangent here, but one thing you might have noticed with what I was talking about before with the unhealthy versions of both energies is that they are all about external factors, like protecting myself from external factors. So I'm being controlling so that no one can manipulate me. I'm being aggressive so no one can make me feel something first. So everything is affecting me externally and I'm essentially behaving in a way that creates a barrier. What actually happens is when you get into balance and you have a healthy masculine and feminine energy working together, when I say you step into the most powerful version of you, what I mean is that you create internal power, because balance in any way, when it comes to our body and our human being and our thoughts and our emotions and our energies and all of those beautiful things that we don't get taught about in school like we should, anytime any of those things are in balance, it creates internal safety. So I'm no longer having to behave in a way that creates an external barrier so things can't make me feel unsafe. I feel so safe and secure in my own self, in my identity, in who I am, where I'm going, what I'm doing. I'm in flow. I'm in clarity. When I rest, I feel amazing. All of those things get to happen because we create internal safety. And it actually doesn't matter what the external world's doing because we're so strong in ourselves. And that's what I mean when I say we step into a really powerful version of ourselves. So that integration into self is what wholeness actually feels like. So, and again, really beautiful, right? So you might have experienced this before and become unbalanced, or you've never experienced this before. And I would encourage you to really look at this. If something's resonating with you here on the negative side, awareness is the first key, of course. So, how do we get there? Awareness first. So notice without judgment. Now, without judgment is really important. Why is that really important? Because like I said at the beginning, we do enough judging ourselves. I mean, I kick myself a lot still to this day, not as much as I used to, but I still find myself going and beating myself up. And it's not helpful. It doesn't make me do anything better. If anything, it makes me feel worse, right? So we always look at these difficult things about ourselves without judgment, but really getting an honest, objective look at where I am now. Just notice in whatever way that looks, whatever way that works for you to help you notice that, that's really important. Are you in overdrive, masculine, constantly doing, never resting, emotionally shut down, needing to control, exhausted? And I did a webinar the other night on nervous system regulation called Wired and Tired. Exhausted, but not able to stop. So I'm awake, I'm here, I'm present, but I'm physically exhausted at the same time. Are you in your wounded feminine? Waiting to be rescued, swept away by emotions. No boundaries is a big one for this. No boundaries. Um, and then really resentful when people encroach your boundaries. That's the other thing, right? So the resentment piece is really, if you're going to notice anything in the feminine side, notice where the resentment lies. Chronic people pleasing, giving everything, and like I said, feeling resentful about that. Or are you sort of swinging between the two? Are you grinding into hyper masculine mode until you collapse and then flipping into a kind of emotional overwhelm before you pull yourself back together and grind again? And it's more like a seesaw or a ping pong. Just notice. No judgment. This is information. This is data. And we can do something with information and data. We can't do anything if we don't look at it. So take a moment, pause this, sit with yourself, like in silence, eyes closed, and just really think about this for a moment and understand where it is that you sit most of the time. Most of the time. Number two, regulate your nervous system. Again, I've spoken about this and I could bang on about it all night. Nervous system is the foundation of everything. It is the operating system of your human being. I cannot say this enough. You cannot access your healthy feminine from a dysregulated nervous system. It is physiologically impossible. When your body is in survival mode, it will default to masculine energy every single time. So the first step in coming back into balance is calming your nervous system. And we do, like, I don't know if you've ever been on holiday, right? If you're in hypermasculine, been on holiday and it takes you like the first week to even get to the point where you can like nap in the afternoon or lay on the beach and relax. Because then your nervous system starts to finally feel calm and then you get into rest and flow and then it's time to go back to work. Don't know if you've experienced this. I certainly have a few times. um, so yeah, again, the very first thing to do is really step into that calming your nervous system. And we do that through the body, not through thinking or deciding or through willpower. Um, as I said, I did a webinar on nervous system regulation the other night. It was very practical. I literally went through body processes, exactly what to do, exactly what things to incorporate in your life. If you want a copy of that recording, let me know and I will send it to you because it's nervous system 101, why it's important, how it all works, and exactly what to do in your everyday life and when you're actually feeling stressed. But things like grounding practices, your somatic tools, your breath works, your yin yoga, getting out in nature, rest, of course, Hawaiian style massages, Lomi Lomi and Kahuna, magnesium bath. These aren't just like self-care things. And when I talk about nature, for example, I mean lying under a tree. I mean walking on the beach. I do not mean trail bike riding or, running. I mean really relaxing, resonant, and low energy, calming things. But nature is really important because we are nature. So we resonate with it energetically. Meditation, resting the mind. These are ways that you signal to the nervous system that you're safe. And from safety is where the feminine emerges, right? When the feminine feels loved and safe, flow state happens, intuition happens, right? Okay, next thing you can do, practice receiving. I get asked this question all the time. How can I receive better? Because I'm so uncomfortable. And this mostly we're talking about money and things, right? So people who have big money blocks, it's like I just feel awkward selling or asking for money or asking for what I am worth, charging correctly and things. I work with businesses, right? So a lot of that money energetics is just a receiving block, a feminine energy block. So something you can start with really small. This is what I prescribe my clients who have a receiving problem is take a compliment. Next time someone gives you a compliment, instead of going, oh, it's not a big deal, or thank you so much, and like going, scurrying away, or the one thing that I see most is giving a compliment back. Someone says, oh, I love your hair. Oh, I love yours too. Every single time someone gives you a compliment in the next 4 weeks, let's say 30 days, I want you to just say thank you. Nothing else. And just receive it. It's going to feel super uncomfortable at first. If somebody offers to help you, say yes, please. That would be nice. Not, no thanks, I'm fine, or it's all good. Really receive help and say yes if you need it. If you don't need it, fine. But if you're like, actually, I don't want to carry these boxes up this flight of stairs. If you could help me, that'd be awesome. Say yes and nothing else. Not what can I do for you in return? What do I owe you? Nothing. Just yes, please, thank you. So these are really small things that, because what happens is when um, our nervous system actually can't tell the difference between something real and imagined. It can't tell the difference between real and perceived threat. And it can't tell the difference between something really big making us feel unsafe and something really small making us feel unsafe. And the same is, of course, applicable for safety. So if you teach your nervous system that it's safe to receive with what seems like really small things, for your nervous system, it's the same. It's the same as receiving $1 million. If you receive a compliment about your hair and you say, thank you so much, and nothing else, and you really receive that with love and feel it, that is the exact same thing to your nervous system as getting $1 million. So you start here. It's not like it's disproportionate. Some people go, oh, it's disproportionate. It's not. Your nervous system can't tell the difference. It just sees receiving as receiving. So start with a compliment or letting someone help you or someone giving you a gift for absolutely no reason. Don't go next week and buy them a gift. Just say thank you. And that's it. Move on. Because we just get to receive. It's kind of our birthright, to be honest. It will feel deeply uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is really the edge of your growth, right? Alrighty, let's talk about the next one. So bringing feeling back into your body. Feminine energy lives in the body, mostly, not in the head. I don't like to fully separate it that way, masculine head, body, feminine, but it's disproportionately like that, but both exist everywhere, right? So one of the most powerful things that you can do to come back into balance, because most people are all in the head and out of the body. Some people are the other way around, but again, this is all about balance. So you have to understand which one you're at. So bringing yourself back into your body. So things like body-based practices, somatic healing modalities, movement that's more intuitive than goal-orientated. So again, like when you go to the gym, do what you feel like doing, or maybe it's like a Pilates class or a dance class or like a Zumba class. I did aqua Zumba once. That is terrifying. But it was so fun. Like, we just laughed the whole time, as opposed to like pumping iron to get to, a specific a goal, and there's no problem with that. I'm definitely not saying don't do that. It's not a problem. It's more about the reason behind it and how can you do both, right? Things like dancing in a kitchen, being a little bit silly and playful, going out in nature, as I mentioned before, allows you to get back into your body. We resonate with nature because we are nature. We have a much more resonant frequency with a tree than with a wall in our house, right? Everything is energy, including the wall, but that's again a big topic for another day. But we resonate more with the tree. So get out near the trees. And allow yourself, I think the biggest one here is really allow yourself to acknowledge your feelings. Like maybe journal for let's do this one for 30 days as well. For the next 30 days, at the end of the night, just before you go to sleep, have a notebook by your bed and write down the one word, a prominent emotion that you had that day. So reflect on your whole day, and maybe you felt like a little bit sad, and when you woke up and you're a bit tired, and then you like got in the car, and then there was lots of traffic, so you were really frustrated. Then you got to work and you saw your favorite colleague and you had a little bit of a laugh, and that was really fun. And go through your day and pick out what was the most prominent emotion in one word. Because the other thing that happens is someone says, "How was your day?" And you go, "Oh, actually, it was pretty good," or "Oh gosh, it was terrible." And actually, like one bad thing happened in the whole day, or actually nothing really happened. um, or nothing, or all these amazing things happen, but we just don't acknowledge them and make time to feel them. So really, it's as simple as allowing yourself to have a feeling and acknowledging it. So every night for the next 30 days, write down your prominent emotion for the day. Rest without justifying it. This is really difficult. And I gave that example before of sort of going on a 2-week holiday. If you're in the hyper masculine and the first week is like just allowing yourself, and it's a permission piece because it feels wrong. It feels bad for you to stop. So the only way to really tackle this one initially is to actually schedule in the rest. So it sounds counterintuitive, but do the masculine thing and schedule it in and make that like that is rest, and tell yourself that is completely that's getting me towards my goal, that's getting me further in life into my power, whatever that language looks good for you. So it still feels like a doing thing initially, and then over time it will just become something that you actually can't live without. Because once you've felt true rest, when you have been in masculine energy for a long time, fight or flight, hyperachieving mode for years, sometimes decades, when you actually allow yourself to get into rest, and I'm taking a big breath as I'm saying this because I felt this before, it's a lot, you actually can't live without it anymore. You realize how important it is, but it is very, very hard to get there first. So make it a chore, make it a thing that you schedule in, and then when you're in the rest, you go, okay, this was the time that I gave myself to rest. Nothing can fall down or fall apart. All right, I'm going to rest now. And over time, you just get better at it. It's a practice makes perfect. Sounds completely insane, but that's absolutely how it is. Um, but it's so important. And like I said, rest actually, there is so much evidence, so many studies saying that the more we rest, the more productive we are. People who are well rested, look after their feelings and emotions, and who allow themselves time to regulate and take care of themselves, produce better products, serve clients better, and are way more productive at work than people who grind and hustle 24/7. And last one, let your masculine serve your feminine, not replace, serve. Now, this is an integration piece and where it kind of gets a bit beautiful, I think. So, healthy masculine energy at its best is a protector, it's a container. It creates structure and safety within the feminine so it can actually flourish, right? It allows, and this is why they need each other, because without the safety, there can be no flourishing. Um, and without the flourishing, there's nothing to protect. There's no purpose. And the masculine kind of needs purpose, right? So feminine's like water. It flows, it's responsive, alive, it finds its own level. But water without a container spills everywhere. And the masculine is the riverbank, right? It gives the water direction. It gives it somewhere to actually go. When your masculine is healthy, it is in service of your feminine. It creates the space and the time and the structure and the safety for you to rest, for you to receive, to feel, to be. It's the being over the doing energy, right? So your ambition in service of your joy. So I don't know about you, but I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who started their business because they wanted to have a really joyful life full of purpose. And now they are in absolute grind. They don't even know what joy is anymore. They are in complete and utter doing energy. So your discipline and your ambition need to be in service of your joy and your well-being. So we're not trying to get to the next level, get to the next income, get to the next. So I can promise you it's never enough. I want structure and certainty and predictability in order to service my joy and my well-being. Your structure in service of your flow, not the other way around. Don't be scared of those of joy and well-being and flow actually getting in the way of your structure. It needs to be the other way around. The structure serves you. It serves what's real about you, your inner joy. Yeah, I think that's all I need to say on that one. Let me just think. Yeah. So that's what balance actually looks like. And it's absolutely available to you. So I want to just take a moment here because I've covered a lot tonight. We've covered a lot tonight. You now have the reframe. So these energies have nothing to do with gender and everything to do with wholeness, with balance. You understand what each one actually looks like at its best and also what it looks like when it gets wounded. You understand how and why most of us end up out of balance, excuse me, through that conditioning, the survival, through a world that rewards only half of who we are. And you have real practical points of how to come back, to balance. That is genuinely more than most people ever get on this topic. But here's what I know from years of doing this work and from my own journey. Information shifts your thinking, but it doesn't shift your body. All those things I was talking about tonight, you've got to actually do the somatic practices, you've got to do the body stuff. And information doesn't rewire patterns. It doesn't reach the parts of you that have been quiet for so long that they've almost forgotten how to speak, how to be there, how to be present. That requires something deeper, something more immersive, something where you're not just learning about the stuff, but actually moving through the body and doing it and having it witnessed by other people who are doing the same is really important as well. And that's exactly what I want to tell you about now, which is, of course, how you can work with us at the Ascendancy Collective, because we would love to see you on board if you feel called, of course. So imagine for a moment waking up feeling both grounded and open, purposeful, present, able to get things done and actually rest when the time calls for it. Really clear in your thinking and connected to your feelings. Ambitious and soft, strong and receiving. Not one or the other, both at the same time in the same body. And in a way that allows you to step into that really powerful version I mentioned before, that internal strength and safety. That's how this gets created. That's what the integration feels like. And again, I know how this feels because I've lived it now. And the difference between that and where I was is absolutely immeasurable. So I've got two offers for you tonight to talk through. The first one is, first of all, I'll talk about my co-founders at the Ascendancy Collective. So there's three of us with backgrounds in personal development and coaching who make up the Ascendancy Collective, and then I'll tell you what you can come and work with us on. So first of all, we've got Rhiannon Watson. Now, Rhiannon spent many years in film and television. She deeply understands people, emotion, and behavior, like childhood programming. She's worked with lots and lots of kids over time, and she really understands early childhood conditioning in a way that I haven't seen before. Aside from that, she's an international event MC. She guides live audience experiences and, of course, works with me on personal development programs as well. Studied mindset and identity work with the Gallagher Institute. Proctor Gallagher Institute, and is also a breakthrough facilitator, helping people shift patterns in real time. Karina. Now, Karina's quite extraordinary. She has experienced things in life that would absolutely put most people on their ass. She founded the foundation called the Sophie Effect after the death of her child, and created a successful children's program following that loss as well. She's lived through unimaginable grief and trauma, honestly. So consequently, she's a specialist coach in grief resilience. identity rebuilding, self-leadership. Keynote speaker, she tells her story on stage and really helps other people to move through their grief and understand their own power and resilience. Because we have a choice when something happens to us, right? We can give up, or we can build a stronger version of ourselves, right? The thing I really like about her is that she can hold you in whatever emotional state you're in. So she really can hold emotion. You can turn up to her with whatever, and she will be able to hold you in it. So I love that. So they're the two extraordinary women that I work with on the Ascendancy Collective. And our mission really is to tell the truth or tell you the rules of life. So from my perspective, what I've learned in the last couple of years, so I was 38 when I had that big Tuesday night, dinner moment, and I'm, well into my 40s now. But if I had have known what the nervous system and stress was earlier, if I had have known about masculine and feminine energy, if I hadn't even heard things like we're energetic beings, or basically there's all these rules to life, fundamental rules of life that we are never taught. And you actually can't win a game if you don't know the rules. So we're all about telling you the rules, educating you, and also holding you in a very safe container and allow you to process whatever it is you need to process so it's gone for good. We're not just about education. Yes, that's important, and we all do that really well in our areas of expertise. And between us, we've got a lot of expertise in varied areas and very different styles and approaches, which is a great thing, right? Great thing. But the most important thing is that we can create environments where you can go from where you are to where you want to be, and we can hold you in that uncomfortability and help you get there and go through your stuff. Not just the actions, but the feelings, the emotions, the change of identity that's required, all those things, right? So Ascend Ignite, that is on this Saturday, the 11th of July. It's live on Zoom, so it's a virtual experience, but you do need to be in the room for that one. Investment is $29, and it's 3.5 hours from 9 till 12:30. Like I said, this Saturday, we might put some on later in the year, but at the moment, this is the only one going. Again, we're going to look at your past. So really takes you into the past, your conditioning, your programming, how you got there, and helps you understand what yours are, but how and why that happened. Then Karina talks about, who you are right now. What are your values? What do you actually love to do? What do you like? What do you don't like? All of these things we often don't even ask ourselves. There's a massive disconnect between the values that you think are important to you and the values you actually live by, right? So we help you bring light to that, shed light to it. Who actually are you? And she takes you beautifully through that process. And then I come in and go, all right, what do you want next? You can have absolutely any life that you want. How do you actually do that? I talk you through some of the rules of life because I love talking about it, and how to change how you are. So all of those things you just learned about yourself, I'm going to show you how to change them. And then I'm going to give you a super practical, action-oriented framework. So when you walk out of that meeting, you know exactly what to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. We're going to map out my own personal framework on how to actually get the things that you want in life. We're going to sit there and do it, and then you're going to know exactly what to do. So this is about, people in the last one said that they had broken through things that they had not been able to break through in years. They'd done lots of personal development, but they just couldn't quite get that thing that kept coming up over and over as a pattern. They just couldn't quite nip it in the bud. They managed to make a start on that this weekend, and some people even got through that completely. One gentleman shared that he was completely changed. He was like, I'm going to show up as a better leader, as a better carer, as a better dad. He really understood his impact on his children, for example. And he was like, I have completely shifted in a very deep way, just understanding more of myself and then allowing myself to understand what it is that I want and create a plan for it. So that's just some examples. I absolutely love this event. I mean, we love delivering this event. And like I said, we're doing past, present, future. And it's a really good overview and just a nice look at yourself in the comfort of your own home with your cup of tea. Come and join us on Saturday. You won't regret it. $29, less than the cost of lunch. Oh, here's a couple of things that they said last night. So these were some of the comments that were in the chat about the Ignite in the last one that we did back in June. Love this one. I'm crying. It's everything I've been imagining for my future self that's been running in the background. So we were able to tap into that. Sarah was really cool. She actually set a goal for the end of the year. So this was back in June. Set a goal for the end of the year to run 10 kilometers, like work up to 10 kilometers. She got off the call and she went and ran 10 kilometers that day because she deeply, deeply connected to why it was important in a different way than she never had before. So the way that I do the framework, yeah, the goal setting part is, oh, I just love it. Anyway, I won't talk too much on that. So there's the QR code for that one. You can scan that with your phone. Of course, if you want, wherever this is, YouTube or school, all of those places it is, the link will be there as well. But yeah, you can also use this QR code to access Ignite for this Saturday. And then the next one that we're super excited about is Summit. Now, Summit is a 2-day in-person experience. Now, what do I love about in-person events? I used to run multi-day retreats and I used to go to a lot of multi-day retreats. And I think the thing about a multi-day in-person experience is that you have that beautiful combination of uh, immersion, like full immersion in the moment, and also intensity. So that impacts you enough to actually create lasting change. So yeah, we are so excited about this. Essentially, I can't tell you all of the details because if you've ever been to personal development or self-development events before, there's some things that need to happen in the room, in the moment. We can't give you all the information, but I will tell you what you're going to get. Okay, I'll tell you what you're going to get. 2 full days of expertise. And I just mentioned all of our different areas of expertise. We've got you covered. There's very few people in the world that have expertise across all those areas. Between the three of us, yeah, we've got you covered. And we're all very experienced facilitators as well in this work. All the tools that you need, you're going to get a workbook, any resources that you need, materials for the room. You won't need to bring anything except yourself and a jumper, probably. Support. You're going to have a high energy, deeply personal, and like I said, impactful, that immersion piece, right? Fully supported experience. Will it be hard at times? Will it be uncomfortable at times? Will it be emotional at times? Yes, absolutely. That is how we create change, but it will also be a deeply supported experience for you. We're also going to help you with implementation. I don't know how many of you have been along to events and then you get home and you're like sort of on a high for 2 days and then you're like, what do I do now? So we're going to do a 30-day integration. We're going to give you a guide to follow after the event. And you'll also have access to our Ascendancy Collective school community, which, we're always dropping resources and chatting. And it just allows you to connect with other people who are like-minded. And we'll do an actual official group integration call after the event as well, just to make sure everybody is implementing, but also has everything they need to feel supported. So that's the things that you're going to get. What you'll actually walk away with, I love this. Clarity, understanding exactly what's been keeping you stuck. Now, some of you think you know what this is. Some of you think you don't have any. Some of you are like, I know there's something, but I can't put my finger on it. We're going to find the thing. Really find it. Reconnection with who you really are, what you value, and what you genuinely want. Again, sometimes we think we know what we want. We think we know what we value. So I'll say, if you value X, Y, Z, and I say, okay, well, what do you speak about the most, spend your money on, all those sorts of things, and they're not the same thing, you have a misalignment. We're going to help you with that. Confidence, a completely different relationship with fear, grief, anger, resistance, and uncertainty. Who wants a different relationship with these things? To see them as data and signals that guide us, not that cripple us, right? Direction. Oof. I'm a very action-oriented coach. I said that at the beginning. I love the whole, I'm going to give you like so many practical tools, an absolutely clear plan, and the next steps This is all going to be inspirational. It's all going to be life-changing. It's all going to be change you fundamentally in your body as a human being from here to there. And you're also going to know exactly what to do when you step out of that room, and you're going to feel really powerful and good about who you actually really are. And that is the integral point, right? We want to feel good about who we really are. So you won't just leave with the good feeling, you'll also have a new direction. So that is Summit. Now, Summit dates. We are the one that's on Zoom. We're actually not doing that one on Zoom. Yeah, we will do one on Zoom, but it's going to be later on, a virtual one. But for now, what we do have on offer is the 8th and 9th of August, and this is live in person in Brisbane. We have got the most stunning venue in Newstead in Brisbane. It's absolutely beautiful. It's really close to transport and accommodation, all those things if you're out of town. But if you are in Brisbane or Sunshine Coast or Gold Coast, come along to the Brisbane event. Like I said, the space we've got is incredible. It's going to be amazing. Now, the investment for this is $649 for the 2 days, everything included. But if you use the code ASCEND when you get to the checkout, you'll get 10% off. Okay, and we have 2 payment options. You pay in full, or you can pay half now and half in a couple of weeks. So you can again do this by QR code, and I'll also send out the link with I'll send out the link with the email if you registered. If you didn't register and you're watching this on YouTube or something, the link will be around somewhere as well. Otherwise, you can use the QR code, pop in the code ASCEND for your 10% off for watching my webinar. Finally, last thing I want to share is the school community. It's completely free to join. We do drop resources in there. All of the webinar recordings go in there. We run these really frequently on very specific topics. So me and Rhiannon and Karina all do webinars on all different topics. So you can find recordings in there. Also, people to chat to, like-minded people to talk to as well. Okay, so that is all for tonight. Thank you again so much for joining me. I feel like, as I said at the beginning, this is just one of those topics that I love to talk about because my lived experience shows me that if I had have known this earlier, my life would be different. I have no regrets in my life. I've had challenges like everyone else, but I might have approached things a bit differently. So I'm so passionate about getting this type of information out to people. Just remember, at the end of the day, you are an energetic being first and foremost. And there are parts of you that you are not taught to understand. In fact, you're taught not to understand them. And, it's your responsibility once you know that to allow yourself to understand them. So I hope it's been valuable tonight. If you have any questions or concerns, our email address is ascendancycollectivehq@gmail.com. And you can reach out to us on socials as well with the Ascendancy Collective. Enjoy your night. Thank you so much.